Watch the King's Guard's Majestic Parade at the Lord Mayor's Show 2025. There was a quiet excitement that seemed to float in the air, almost like the city itself was holding its breath, waiting for something extraordinary to happen. People woke early, rubbing the sleep from their eyes, not to rush to work or school, but to find the perfect spot along the streets where the parade would pass. Families gathered together, holding hands as they navigated the crowded sidewalks, carrying picnic blankets, cameras, and small flags. Tourists with maps and guidebooks wandered among the locals, trying to find the best view, while street vendors set up colorful stalls, ready to sell snacks, souvenirs, and cheerful memorabilia for the big day. As the morning sun rose, its golden light reflected off the historic buildings of London, casting long shadows across the cobblestones and streets. The city, known for its busy pace and constant movement, seemed to slow down just a little. People paused to look at the old architecture, some whispering facts and stories they had read or remembered from their school days. Children's faces lit up at the sight of the first few floats being prepared in the distance, and parents lifted them onto shoulders so they could see over the crowd. The smell of fresh bread from nearby bakeries mixed with the crisp air, giving the streets a comforting, lively aroma. The excitement was infectious, spreading quickly from person to person as more and more spectators arrived. The parade had always been a major event, but this year it felt even more special. Stories of past Lord Mayor's shows were being told and retold among the people waiting. Some older spectators remembered watching the parade decades ago and shared these memories with younger family members. They spoke about the impressive uniforms, the marching bands, and the carriages decorated with bright colors and flowers. These stories made the children's eyes widen with wonder, and even the teenagers seemed to lean in, eager to see what was going to unfold. Everyone felt part of something bigger, a tradition that stretched back through history, connecting them to countless others who had stood in the same streets to watch the same spectacle. As the crowd grew denser, the streets became a mosaic of humanity. People of all ages and backgrounds filled every corner, students from nearby schools, office workers who had taken a day off, and visitors from around the world. Some held umbrellas to shield themselves from the weak winter sun, while others wore hats and scarves in bright colors to show their excitement. There was a sense of camaraderie among strangers, a shared understanding that everyone was there for the same reason, to witness the grandeur of the King's Guards and the pageantry of the Lord Mayor's show. Conversations buzzed through the crowd, but the excitement was not loud or chaotic. It was more like an electric current running silently between everyone, making their anticipation almost tangible. Vendors moved carefully through the crowd, calling out to customers with cheerful voices. Some sold steaming cups of tea and coffee to warm hands chilled by the morning air, while others offered traditional snacks like pastries, pies, and roasted chestnuts. Children tugged at their parents' sleeves, pleading for sweets and toys, their eyes constantly darting toward the distant sounds of drums and trumpets. Street performers tried to capture the attention of passers-by, juggling, playing instruments, or performing small acts of magic, adding a sense of playfulness to the already festive atmosphere. The crowd laughed and clapped at their antics, momentarily forgetting the wait, but the underlying excitement never diminished. Everyone knew that the main event, the arrival of the King's Guards, was only moments away. Meanwhile, news crews and photographers began setting up along the route. Cameras were adjusted, microphones tested, and reporters spoke quietly to each other, preparing to capture every moment for viewers watching from home. People holding smartphones filmed small clips of the crowd, sharing them instantly on social media, spreading the excitement beyond the streets of London. Some were recording the parade to show their families who could not be there, while others simply wanted to capture the magic for themselves. The combination of modern technology and centuries-old tradition created a fascinating contrast, showing how the parade had remained relevant even in the digital age. As the first sounds of ceremonial music drifted through the air, heads turned and eyes widened. Even before the King's Guards appeared, there was a sense that something remarkable was about to happen. Children clutched their parents' hands tighter, while adults leaned forward, trying to catch the earliest glimpse of the uniforms that had become a symbol of precision, discipline, and history. Everyone was silent for a moment, almost holding their breath, as if the city itself was waiting alongside them. The air seemed to vibrate with anticipation, and even the birds flying overhead paused briefly, as though sensing the significance of the event below. Some spectators brought binoculars to get a closer look, while others had cameras with zoom lenses aimed at the distant streets. Every pair of eyes seemed to search for that first hint of movement, the sharp red of the king's guards, tunics, the black of their bearskin hats, the flash of polished boots in the sunlight. Conversations became whispers of excitement. "Look, they're coming. I can hear the drums. I've never seen them up close before." Every new sound or movement drew a chorus of cheers and gasps from the crowd, adding layers of life and energy to the morning. The anticipation was not just about seeing the parade. It was about experiencing history in the present. Spectators felt a connection to past generations who had watched similar parades, imagining themselves part of a long chain of witnesses to Britain's rich traditions. The Lord Mayor's show had endured for centuries, and the King's Guards had been a part of it for nearly as long, their disciplined steps echoing through history. Standing there, watching the streets fill with people and feeling the energy build, the audience could almost imagine what the city had looked like hundreds of years ago, with similar crowds gathering in the same streets, filled with the same sense of wonder and pride. Time seemed to stretch as everyone waited. Children squirmed with excitement, pointing at floats and decorations being wheeled into place. Adults adjusted their positions, making sure cameras were ready and that their view would not be blocked. Street performers continued their small acts, but even they seemed aware that the main spectacle was approaching. The anticipation itself had become part of the experience, a collective feeling shared by thousands of people, each contributing to the energy of the morning in their own way. Finally, the first signals of the parade's arrival appeared in the distance. A drumbeat echoed faintly, followed by the clear notes of trumpets. People straightened in their spots, holding their breath as the sounds grew louder. The anticipation that had been building for hours reached its peak. Some spectators cheered, while others stood silently, captivated by the promise of something majestic about to unfold. The city streets, alive with history, culture, and excitement, seemed to hold their collective breath, ready to welcome the King's Guards and the pageantry of the Lord Mayor's Show 2025. And then, just as the crowd had imagined, the first glimpse of red appeared on the horizon, sharp against the morning light. Every eye focused on the approaching guards, and a sense of awe swept through the streets. The waiting, the anticipation, the stories, and the excitement, all of it had been leading to this moment. The city, its people, and even its quiet corners seemed to lean forward, eager to witness the pageantry that had been centuries in the making. The first sight of the King's Guards brought an almost magical silence over the crowd, as if everyone suddenly realized that the moment they had been waiting for had arrived. From a distance, the bright red of their tunics shone like a beacon against the morning sky, and the tall black bearskin hats made each guard appear taller and more imposing than they already were. Children pointed excitedly, their small voices rising above the murmurs of the crowd, while adults nudged each other, whispering about how impressive they looked even from afar. The energy that had been building all morning seemed to gather and focus on these disciplined soldiers, who moved with an exactness that was both mesmerizing and inspiring. As they drew closer, the sound of their boots striking the cobblestones in perfect unison echoed through the streets. The rhythm was steady, strong, and impossible to ignore. Every step seemed to command respect, not just because of the precision, but because it carried centuries of tradition. Each footfall resonated with history, reminding the spectators that the King's Guards had been part of Britain's royal pageantry for generations. Their movements were smooth yet authoritative, a combination of strength and elegance that seemed almost choreographed to perfection. Even the wind seemed to pause as the march passed, carrying the faint scent of polished leather and brass from their instruments and uniforms. The crowd's attention shifted from the distant red to the incredible discipline of the guards. Their faces, serious and composed, reflected the professionalism that had become their trademark. Despite the noise of the city, the chatter of excited children, and the camera clicks from tourists, the guards' focus never wavered. They looked straight ahead, moving in perfect formation, giving the impression of soldiers who were part of something much larger than themselves. Every turn, every step, every salute was carried out with such precision that it seemed almost impossible. People whispered to each other, trying to guess how many hours of practice it must have taken to achieve such perfection. Accompanying the king's guards was a military band, whose music added another layer of grandeur to the moment. The sound of drums and trumpets echoed through the streets, blending with the rhythm of the marching boots. The music was not loud or chaotic. It was measured and powerful, commanding attention and respect. Each note seemed carefully chosen to match the pace of the parade, creating a harmony between the sound and movement that held everyone spellbound. Children clapped in time with the music, while adults nodded in admiration, clearly moved by the combination of visual and auditory spectacle. Even people who had seen parades before seemed stunned by how perfectly everything came together. As the guards passed closer, the crowd could see the finer details of their uniforms. The red tunics were immaculate, each button shining like a small star in the sunlight. Their belts were polished to perfection, and the black trousers complemented the bright tunics in a way that made the soldiers stand out even more. On closer inspection, small medals and insignias could be seen glinting on some of the guards' chests, each one representing a story of service, discipline, and honor. The bearskin hats, tall and imposing, added a ceremonial dignity that made each guard look larger than life. Spectators marveled at how immovable they appeared, standing tall and proud, embodying both strength and tradition. Horses accompanied part of the parade, adding another level of spectacle to the event. The animals were majestic, their coats gleaming, and their hooves clattering on the pavement in rhythm with the soldiers' boots. Riders guided them with skill, ensuring that they moved in perfect alignment with the rest of the parade. Children gasped and waved at the horses, many pointing out how large and beautiful they were. Even adults found themselves admiring the careful training that had gone into both the soldiers and their equine companions. The combination of humans and animals, both disciplined and graceful, created a display that was awe-inspiring and unforgettable. Photographers and journalists worked quickly to capture every detail. Cameras clicked constantly, snapping close-ups of the guards, focused faces, their polished boots, and the intricate details of their instruments. Reporters spoke quietly into microphones, narrating the parade for those watching from home, while social media users uploaded live clips, sharing the excitement with friends and followers around the world. The digital documentation of the parade created a bridge between tradition and modern technology, showing how a centuries-old ceremony could still captivate people in the age of smartphones and live streaming. Every frame, every photograph, and every video captured the grandeur of the moment, preserving it for history and memory alike. Spectators reacted differently to the parade, each experience unique yet united by awe. Some adults smiled quietly, remembering parades they had watched as children. Others spoke softly to their companions, pointing out aspects of the uniforms or music that impressed them most. Children shouted and waved enthusiastically, their energy adding to the festive atmosphere. Teenagers, who often seemed detached from tradition, stood in silence, clearly caught by the spectacle and the precision of the guards. The parade had a way of drawing everyone in, regardless of age or background, creating a shared experience that left a lasting impression on every observer. As the parade moved through the streets, the choreography of the guards became even more noticeable. Groups of soldiers turned in perfect unison, their movements synchronized to the music and to each other. It was almost like watching a live performance, with every step, every gesture carefully planned and executed. The attention to detail was extraordinary. Even the smallest movement, a tilt of a hat or a salute, seemed deliberate and precise, adding to the overall majesty of the moment. Spectators whispered to each other, marveling at how a group of people could move so seamlessly together, creating a sense of order and beauty that felt almost magical. The interaction between the guards and the crowd, though limited, was fascinating. While the soldiers maintained their composure, they were aware of the audience around them. From time to time, a glance or a nod acknowledged the people watching, creating a subtle connection between those marching and those observing. The crowd responded with cheers, applause, and waves, bridging the gap between tradition and modern celebration. For many, it was not just about watching a parade. It was about feeling part of a living, breathing piece of history, where every detail mattered and every movement carried meaning. Time seemed to stretch as the parade continued, each moment more impressive than the last. The combination of music, movement, uniforms, and history created an experience that felt larger than life. Spectators found themselves caught up in the rhythm, clapping along with the music, cheering as the guards passed, and capturing every detail on their phones and cameras. The parade became a shared story, told by everyone present through their reactions, their photos, and their memories. It was a story of discipline, dedication, and pride brought to life on the streets of London for everyone to witness. As the King's Guards reached the heart of the parade route, the sheer scale of the procession became evident. More soldiers joined in formation, bands played in perfect harmony, and the crowd's excitement grew with every passing moment. Children's faces were painted with awe. Adults exchanged smiles of admiration, and tourists whispered in amazement at the beauty and precision of the event. Every detail, from the shine of a button to the coordinated march of hundreds of guards, contributed to a sense of wonder that made the parade unforgettable. By the time the first wave of the parade had passed, spectators were already talking about the experience. Conversations bubbled up about the guards, discipline, the elegance of the horses, and the power of the music. People shared their favorite moments, pointing out small details that others might have missed. There was a sense of pride in witnessing such a spectacle, as if being part of the audience meant participating in a tradition that had endured for centuries. For many, the morning had been magical, a perfect blend of history, culture, and celebration that could only be experienced in person. Even as the guards marched on and new elements of the parade appeared, the memory of that first glimpse remained vivid. The combination of red tunics, black bearskin hats, rhythmic boots, and powerful music had left a mark on everyone watching. Children would later tell their friends and teachers about what they had seen. Adults would remember the feeling of awe, and tourists would take home stories of a parade that exceeded every expectation. The King's Guards had not just marched through the streets. They had created a moment that connected the past to the present, leaving an impression that would last long after the parade ended. By the time the final notes of music faded and the last soldiers moved out of sight, the crowd remained buzzing with excitement. The experience of seeing the King's Guards up close had been unlike anything else. It was a mixture of admiration, pride, and wonder, all wrapped up in the spectacle of a centuries-old tradition brought to life in the heart of London. The anticipation that had built all morning had been more than justified. The guards had arrived, and in doing so, they had reminded everyone present why the Lord Mayor's show remained one of the most cherished celebrations in the city. As the parade moved further along the streets of London, the grandeur of the King's Guards became even more apparent. Every movement, every turn, and every salute seemed carefully choreographed, like a well-rehearsed performance on a grand stage. Spectators could hardly believe the precision they were witnessing. Groups of guards shifted positions with such perfect timing that it appeared almost impossible for humans to achieve. Each formation was deliberate, yet graceful, showing both strength and elegance at the same time. People in the crowd whispered to one another, pointing out how the soldiers moved as if guided by a single mind, each step perfectly aligned with the others. The combination of music and movement added an almost magical effect. Drums beat in steady rhythm, trumpets announced the arrival of new formations, and flutes and other instruments filled the air with melodic harmony. Every note of the music matched the pace of the soldiers' march, as if the instruments were speaking directly to the rhythm of their steps. The crowd, caught up in the power of the sound and the visual spectacle, swayed with the rhythm, clapping in time and cheering at key moments. Children tried to mimic the beat with their little hands, while adults smiled, clearly impressed by the coordination and planning that had gone into the event. The music didn't just accompany the parade, it elevated it, turning each movement into a story of discipline, tradition, and pride. Spectators could now see the smaller details that made the King's Guards so extraordinary. Buttons on their uniforms gleamed in the sunlight, polished to perfection. Belts and sashes were crisp and neat, each fold in place as if crafted for a painting. Their tall bearskin hats, black and imposing, added height and presence, making the soldiers appear larger than life. Even the smallest gestures, like a salute or the turn of a head, were executed with care and precision. Every inch of their appearance reflected discipline, training, and respect for the centuries-old tradition they represented. The crowd's admiration grew with every step, and many felt a quiet awe at the professionalism on display. Horses, carefully trained and elegant, added another dimension to the spectacle. Their coats were shiny, groomed to perfection, and their movements synchronized with the marching soldiers. Riders sat upright, guiding the horses with gentle but confident commands, ensuring they stayed in line with the formations. Children squealed in delight when the horses trotted past, waving their tiny flags with excitement. Adults couldn't help but admire the grace of the animals, marveling at the teamwork between horse and rider. The combination of disciplined soldiers and majestic horses created a scene that seemed almost like a live painting, full of color, movement, and life. As the parade continued, it became clear how much practice had gone into every aspect of the event. Observers noticed the subtle cues the guards used to stay in sync, the way their eyes focused straight ahead, and the tiny adjustments they made to maintain formation. It was a perfect balance of discipline and teamwork, showing that behind the grandeur was an incredible amount of effort, training, and dedication. Parents whispered to their children about the importance of practice, pointing out that such perfection could only be achieved through hard work and determination. The audience, though mesmerized, also gained a subtle lesson in patience, focus, and unity. The choreography of the parade was not limited to marching alone. Guards performed intricate maneuvers as they navigated the twists and turns of the streets. Groups would pivot in unison, forming precise angles that looked like a well-rehearsed dance. Carriages and floats moved in harmony with the soldiers, requiring careful timing to avoid collisions and maintain flow. Each turn was executed flawlessly, earning quiet gasps and applause from the crowd. The precision and artistry involved in every step became a topic of conversation among spectators, many of whom were seeing such skill up close for the first time. It was not just a parade. It was a live performance, blending military discipline with theatrical beauty. Children were especially captivated by the colorful decorations and synchronized movements. They pointed out the bright uniforms, the polished boots, and the gleaming instruments with wonder in their eyes. Many tried to count the number of soldiers in each formation, fascinated by the scale of the event. Adults watched with admiration, some reminiscing about their own childhood experiences at similar parades. Teenagers who often seemed disinterested in traditions were caught up in the spectacle, their phones raised to capture every moment. The parade had a way of drawing people in, making everyone, regardless of age, feel connected to the history and artistry unfolding before them. Social media played a role in spreading the grandeur beyond the streets of London. Spectators uploaded photos and videos in real time, sharing the excitement with friends and family across the country and around the world. Short clips captured the synchronized movements, the gleaming uniforms, and the beauty of the horses. Captions highlighted the professionalism and dedication of the King's Guards, praising their discipline and the majesty of the event. Even those who could not be present felt part of the celebration, following along through live updates and feeling a sense of connection to the centuries-old tradition. The Guards' expressions, though serious, carried a quiet dignity that impressed the audience. Their eyes, forward and focused, reflected pride in their roles. While they maintained composure, there was an undeniable energy in their movements, a reminder that each soldier was both an individual and a part of something larger. Spectators noted that the parade was more than just a display. It was a representation of national pride, history, and unity. Every salute, every step, and every turn held meaning beyond the simple movement, creating a sense of purpose that resonated with everyone watching. Even small details, like the shine on the instruments or the coordinated gestures of the band members, contributed to the overall impact. Each trumpet, drum, and flute note was played with skill and precision, reinforcing the rhythm of the parade. The instruments added layers of complexity and depth, turning the procession into a living symphony. Spectators could see and hear the result of countless hours of practice, not only by the soldiers, but also by the musicians who had mastered the art of performing in perfect harmony with the parade. The effect was mesmerizing, leaving the audience in awe of the coordination and artistry on display. As the parade progressed, new elements appeared, adding variety and excitement. Colorful floats decorated with flowers and banners passed through the streets, accompanied by smaller groups of guards performing specialized maneuvers. Musicians on horseback played stirring tunes, their instruments echoing across the city streets. Children waved excitedly, trying to follow every detail as the parade moved by. Adults discussed the intricate patterns and formations, admiring the planning and effort that had gone into every aspect of the event. The combination of music, movement, color, and tradition created a sensory experience that captivated everyone present, making the Lord Mayor's show feel alive in a way that few other events could match. Spectators began to understand the true significance of the parade. It was not just entertainment, it was a living demonstration of discipline, history, and unity. The King's Guards, with their impeccable precision and dedication, embodied values that had been cherished for centuries. Parents explained to their children how the traditions of the past had shaped the present, connecting the history of the monarchy, the city, and the nation. The audience, young and old, was reminded that such ceremonies were more than performances. They were a bridge between generations, a way to celebrate heritage while inspiring future citizens. The crowd's excitement remained high as the parade continued. People clapped, cheered, and waved flags, contributing to the atmosphere of celebration. Children danced along with the music, their energy matching the rhythm of the drums and trumpets. Tourists pointed their cameras at every detail, capturing memories that would last a lifetime. Adults whispered to each other about the skill and dedication of the soldiers, while some older spectators quietly recalled similar parades they had seen in their youth. The energy of the crowd, combined with the flawless execution of the parade, created a moment that felt almost magical, leaving everyone present deeply impressed. By the time the parade reached its midpoint, the audience was fully immersed in the experience. Every formation, every musical note, and every movement of the King's Guards had captivated the crowd. Children were wide-eyed, adults were smiling, and even casual passers-by stopped to watch, caught up in the spectacle. The grandeur of the parade, the beauty of the uniforms, and the skill of the soldiers created a shared sense of wonder, making the Lord Mayor's Show 2025 a memory that would be talked about for years to come. As the first half of the parade passed, the crowd realized that this was more than a display of military skill. It was a celebration of tradition, a performance that honored history while bringing joy to the present. Spectators felt a connection to the past and pride in being part of a living tradition. Every detail, from the coordinated steps to the music and colors, contributed to an experience that was both educational and deeply enjoyable. For many, the majesty of the parade had already surpassed all expectations, leaving them eager to see what would come next. As the parade continued, it became clear that the true magic of the Lord Mayor's show was not only in the precision of the King's Guards, but also in the connection between the crowd and the spectacle. The audience, gathered along the streets of London, was not merely watching a performance. They were participating in a shared celebration, a moment of history brought to life in front of their eyes. Children bounced with excitement, waving tiny flags and pointing at the soldiers, while adults smiled, often sharing quiet remarks about the skill and beauty of the event. Tourists, many of whom had traveled long distances to see the parade, took photos and videos, eager to capture the experience and share it with friends and family far away. The King's Guards, while maintaining their stoic expressions and perfect formation, seemed aware of the crowd's presence. Their movements, though disciplined and precise, carried an air of ceremonial acknowledgement, a subtle dialogue between the performers and the audience. The soldiers did not break their composure, yet the crowd could sense a connection, a mutual respect that made the parade feel more personal. Every salute, every turn, and every step seemed designed not only to display discipline, but also to honor the spectators who had gathered for this grand tradition. The audience responded with cheers, applause, and waves, creating a dynamic energy that filled the streets. Children were particularly captivated, their imaginations ignited by the vivid colors, rhythmic music, and disciplined movements. Some tried to mimic the guards' steps as they marched past, giggling when their little feet did not keep perfect time. Others pointed to the horses, marveling at their size, grace, and the coordination between horse and rider. Many children pressed their faces against the barriers, eyes wide with wonder, whispering excitedly to their parents about the uniforms, the instruments, and the incredible formations. For them, the parade was not just a spectacle, It was a story unfolding before their eyes, filled with excitement, tradition, and a sense of belonging to something greater. Adults, too, felt the impact of the parade in a different way. Many admired the discipline and professionalism of the King's Guards, noting the countless hours of practice required to achieve such perfection. Some reminisced about their own childhood experiences watching previous parades, sharing stories with their children or companions about the guards they had seen in years past. Others marveled at the beauty of the musical performances, the synchronized movements, and the majesty of the horses. In these moments, the parade became a bridge between generations, linking past memories to present experiences and creating shared stories that would last long after the event ended. The energy of the crowd was amplified by the music of the parade. Drums, trumpets, and flutes resonated through the streets, setting the rhythm for the march and captivating the audience. People clapped in time with the beat, swayed to the melodies, and cheered at key moments, creating a lively, participatory atmosphere. The music was more than background sound. It was an essential part of the experience, a living thread that connected the soldiers' movements with the emotions of the spectators. Children tapped their feet and hummed along, while adults found themselves caught up in the infectious energy, feeling the pulse of tradition and ceremony in every note. Vendors moved carefully among the crowd, offering snacks, drinks, and souvenirs, but even they seemed caught up in the excitement. Children tugged at parents' hands, pleading for treats and small mementos, while adults paused to admire the view or take photographs. Street performers continued to entertain, juggling, dancing, and playing music to complement the main parade. Their performances, though smaller in scale, added a sense of community and festivity, reminding spectators that the Lord Mayor's show was not just about the King's Guards, but also about celebrating the spirit of the city and its people. The crowd's reactions were as diverse as the parade itself. Some people waved eagerly, trying to catch the attention of the guards, while others simply stood in quiet admiration, absorbing the sight and sound of the procession. Tourists compared notes, sharing stories of other parades they had attended in different countries, often agreeing that the London parade had a unique sense of history and tradition that set it apart. Children's laughter, combined with the rhythmic sound of marching and the music, created an atmosphere that felt alive, electric, and deeply joyful. Even those who had not intended to watch the parade closely found themselves caught up in its energy, drawn into the shared experience of celebration and community. One of the most remarkable aspects of the parade was the way it encouraged shared stories and memories. Families recounted past visits to the Lord Mayor's show, pointing out similarities and differences between previous years and 2025. Elderly spectators described parades from decades ago, while younger people shared recent experiences from school trips or family outings. Conversations sparked naturally, as the parade created opportunities for connection, reflection, and shared excitement. Strangers exchanged smiles, commented on the beauty of the uniforms, or noted the skill of the musicians and guards. In these moments, the parade transcended a simple display, becoming a living celebration of heritage and community. Social media amplified this connection, as spectators uploaded photos and short video clips, tagging friends and family, and sharing live reactions. Children posed excitedly for selfies with the parade in the background, while adults recorded moments they knew would become cherished memories. Even people who could not attend in person could follow the event through live streams, videos, and social posts, feeling part of the celebration in real time. The Lord Mayor's show had always been a communal experience, and the digital era expanded its reach, allowing people around the world to connect with the excitement and pageantry of the event. As the parade passed through the streets, the crowd noticed the small details that made the experience special. Each guard maintained an impeccable appearance, with polished boots, crisp uniforms, and perfectly aligned hats. Their movements, though disciplined and precise, carried a rhythm that seemed to invite the spectators into the performance. Even minor gestures, such as a salute or the turning of a head, were executed with care, creating a dialogue between the soldiers and the audience. The crowd responded with waves, applause, and smiles, acknowledging the dedication and skill of the guards while feeling part of the ceremonial tradition themselves. The horses, too, played a role in connecting the crowd to the parade. Children reached out, hoping to touch the gentle giants, while adults admired the training and control required to guide them through the bustling streets. Riders sat tall and composed, guiding their horses with subtle commands, ensuring they moved gracefully and in harmony with the marching soldiers. The sight of disciplined animals moving alongside the guards created a sense of awe, reminding spectators that the parade was not only a celebration of human skill, but also a tribute to the teamwork between humans and animals. By mid-morning, the parade had created a rhythm that the crowd had adopted almost instinctively. Children clapped along, adults cheered in unison, and tourists captured every moment. The audience became an integral part of the experience, reacting to the music, movements, and majesty of the King's Guards. Even small interactions, such as a child's wave being met with a polite salute, made the parade feel personal, warm, and inclusive. Spectators were not just observers, they were participants in a living tradition, contributing to the energy and spirit of the event. The connection between the crowd and the parade was perhaps most evident in the moments of shared joy and admiration. Families hugged, friends laughed, and strangers exchanged smiles as the spectacle unfolded. Children's excitement was contagious, spreading quickly through the crowd and creating an atmosphere of collective wonder. Adults, inspired by the discipline and beauty of the King's Guards, felt pride and admiration. Tourists, witnessing a centuries-old tradition come to life, were captivated by the combination of music, movement, and pageantry. The parade, in essence, had transformed the streets of London into a space of shared celebration and community, where every person felt part of something larger than themselves. As the morning passed, the parade continued to wind its way through the city, each formation more impressive than the last. Spectators noticed the attention to detail in every aspect, from the synchronized steps of the guards to the harmonious music of the bands. Children squealed with delight at the colorful floats, while adults marveled at the precision and professionalism of the soldiers. Tourists pointed their cameras at every angle, capturing memories to share and remember. The energy of the crowd, combined with the grandeur of the parade, created a moment of pure joy and connection, a living celebration of tradition, discipline, and community. By the time the parade began to move toward its later stages, the bond between the spectators and the performers was undeniable. Everyone, young and old, had been drawn into the shared rhythm and pageantry of the event. Children's faces were bright with excitement, adults smiled with admiration, and tourists whispered in awe at the scenes before them. The Lord Mayor's Show 2025 had become more than a display of skill. It was a story unfolding in real time, a celebration of history, community, and pride that touched every person present. The connection between the crowd and the parade had transformed a simple morning into an unforgettable experience. Even after hours of marching, music, and pageantry, the audience remained fully engaged. Conversations buzzed with excitement, children chattered endlessly about what they had seen, and adults shared their admiration for the dedication of the King's Guards. Social media continued to capture the experience, spreading the joy and wonder to audiences far beyond the city streets. For everyone present, the parade had created a memory that would last a lifetime, a reminder that traditions are not just to be observed, but to be experienced, celebrated, and shared with others. As the final sections of the parade slowly moved through the streets of London, a sense of quiet admiration settled over the crowd. The King's Guards had completed their disciplined march, the music had faded from the air, and the colorful floats and bands were moving toward the end of the route. Yet, even as the parade drew to a close, the energy in the city did not diminish. Spectators lingered, their eyes following the last of the soldiers and musicians, reluctant to let the moment end. Children clutched small souvenirs, waving them proudly, while adults discussed their favorite parts of the parade, replaying vivid images in their minds. There was a sense that something truly special had been witnessed, a shared memory that would remain long after the streets had returned to their usual pace. People began to reflect on the discipline, skill, and dedication that had gone into the parade. The King's Guards, though serious and composed, had shared their remarkable training with the audience through every perfectly timed step and precise movement. Parents explained to children how soldiers trained for months, practicing in all weather conditions to achieve such perfection. Teachers who had brought students on school trips spoke quietly about the history and significance of the Lord Mayor's show, connecting the spectacle to lessons in tradition, civic pride, and community service. Even casual observers felt the importance of the event, understanding that it was not just a parade, but a living representation of centuries of heritage and careful planning. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, the streets slowly began to empty, but the mood remained celebratory. Families walked together, recounting their favorite moments, pointing out soldiers and horses that had caught their attention, and sharing laughter about the children's excitement. Tourists lingered longer than planned, taking photographs and recording videos to remember the experience. Some stopped to speak with street vendors, purchasing small mementos to bring home, while others found quiet spots to simply sit and watch the city return to its usual rhythm. The atmosphere was calm but full of reflection, as if the city itself was taking a moment to appreciate the beauty and meaning of what had just occurred. The parade had left a visible mark on the streets. Confetti and decorations littered the sidewalks, reminders of the celebration that had passed through. Children skipped over colorful scraps of paper, laughing and playing, while adults picked up fallen flags or simply admired the scene. The presence of the King's Guards and their majestic formations had transformed the streets into a space of history and pageantry. It was a rare moment when everyday life paused to make room for tradition, and spectators seemed to understand the uniqueness of the experience. Conversations between strangers reflected shared admiration, with people commenting on how perfectly the parade had been executed and how memorable the day had become. Social media buzzed with reactions as well. Spectators uploaded final videos, recounted their favorite moments, and shared their excitement with friends and family. Posts highlighted the discipline of the King's Guards, the beauty of the uniforms, and the synchronized precision of the soldiers and horses. Children's laughter, the rhythm of the music, and the dazzling colors of the parade floats were all captured and shared, extending the experience far beyond the city streets. Those who had not been able to attend in person could feel part of the celebration through live streams, videos, and photos, creating a sense of global participation in a centuries-old tradition. The connection between the crowd and the parade lingered long after the last soldier had disappeared from view. Parents discussed the importance of tradition, explaining how events like the Lord Mayor's show preserved history and civic pride. Children excitedly retold what they had seen, pointing out details that had amazed them: the shine of a button, the size of a horse, or the rhythm of the marching soldiers. Tourists reflected on the uniqueness of the experience, comparing it to events in their own countries and noting the elegance and professionalism that set this parade apart. The energy, pride, and awe created by the King's Guards had left a lasting impression on everyone present, making the day feel extraordinary and unforgettable. Many spectators were struck by the combination of music, movement, and ceremony. The rhythm of the drums, the melodies of trumpets and flutes, and the synchronized steps of the guards had created a harmony that resonated in the hearts of the audience. Adults admired the artistry, while children were captivated by the spectacle. The interplay of sound and movement made the parade feel alive, almost like a story being told in real time. Every note, every step, and every turn had meaning, creating a narrative of discipline, pride, and tradition that all could understand and appreciate. The horses, carefully trained and majestic, had added elegance to the parade that left a deep impression on the spectators. Children's eyes were wide with wonder as the animals moved gracefully beside the guards, their polished hooves striking the pavement in rhythm with the music. Adults admired the precision and teamwork between riders and their horses, understanding the skill required to guide such magnificent animals through crowded streets. The partnership between soldiers and horses reflected a tradition of careful planning, training, and respect for both human and animal participants in the ceremony. It was a reminder of the effort behind the beauty, and spectators quietly acknowledged the dedication behind the scenes. As the parade concluded, conversations between spectators became reflective. Families spoke about how rare it was to witness such a display of history and discipline in the modern world. Children described the most exciting moments, adults commented on the meticulous organization, and tourists remarked on the cultural significance of the event. Strangers found common ground in their admiration, exchanging smiles and brief conversations about the incredible spectacle. In this way, the parade had not only entertained but also united people, creating a shared experience that bridged age, background, and nationality. Some spectators chose to linger in the streets, hoping to catch glimpses of the last floats or hear the fading notes of the music. Others wandered toward nearby cafes and parks, discussing the parade and planning how to capture the memories they had made. Street vendors packed up, yet the smiles on their faces reflected satisfaction at having been part of the event. Performers, whose smaller acts had accompanied the parade, continued to entertain, allowing the celebration to extend beyond the official route. The city itself seemed to pause, taking in the final echoes of the parade, the music, and the applause that had filled the streets. By late morning, the crowd began to disperse, but the memory of the parade remained vivid. Children carried small flags, stickers, and toys as souvenirs, while adults held cameras and phones filled with photographs and videos. Tourists reflected on the unique experience of witnessing a centuries-old tradition firsthand, taking care to savor the details that made the Lord Mayor's show so special. Conversations turned to planning future visits, sharing stories with friends, and passing on memories to family members who could not attend. The experience had created a sense of continuity, connecting past, present, and future in a way that was tangible and memorable. Even after the streets had emptied, the effect of the parade lingered. Memories of the disciplined King's Guards, their polished uniforms, the rhythmic march, the harmonious music, and the majestic horses remained fresh in the minds of everyone who had witnessed it. Children recounted the day with excitement, adults reflected with pride, and tourists carried the story home to share with friends and family. The Lord Mayor's show had once again succeeded in capturing the imagination of the public, reminding everyone of the beauty and significance of tradition in a way that could be seen, heard, and felt. The day had been a celebration not only of discipline and pageantry, but also of unity. People from all walks of life had gathered together to share a common experience, one that highlighted pride, culture, and history. The Lord Mayor's Show 2025 had brought together generations, tourists, families, and individuals, creating a space where everyone could witness a living tradition. Children learned about history through observation, adults were reminded of the importance of heritage, and tourists experienced the uniqueness of London's ceremonial culture. The parade had created an invisible bond between the participants and spectators, a shared memory that would linger long after the last soldier had marched away. Even as evening approached and the streets gradually returned to normal, conversations about the parade continued. Families walked home discussing the excitement of the day, pointing out moments they would remember forever. Tourists planned visits to other historic landmarks, inspired by the beauty and history they had experienced. Social media feeds were filled with photographs, videos, and reflections, spreading the impact of the parade to people who had not been present. It was clear that the Lord Mayor's Show 2025 had achieved something more than entertainment. It had created lasting memories, strengthened connections to tradition, and inspired admiration for the dedication and skill of the King's Guards. The impact of the parade extended beyond the streets and the immediate spectators. Schools used the event as a teaching moment, families passed down stories, and media outlets highlighted the dedication of the soldiers and organizers. The discipline, music, and grandeur of the parade became symbols of pride and unity, inspiring young and old alike. The combination of visual beauty, rhythmic precision, and historical significance ensured that the Lord Mayor's Show remained more than just an annual celebration. It was a living tradition, a shared experience that connected generations and communities. As night fell over London, the memories of the parade remained bright in the minds of all who had witnessed it. The King's Guards, the music, the horses, the disciplined formations, and the connection with the audience had created a day that would be remembered for years to come. Children would continue to recount their favorite moments. Adults would reflect on the professionalism and dedication of the soldiers, and tourists would share stories of the grandeur they had experienced. The Lord Mayor's Show 2025 had achieved what every great parade hopes to do. It had created joy, pride, and lasting memories that connected people to history, tradition, and each other.